crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I'm here to share a video featuring a few cards with the Spellbinders Special Moments collection. So I wanted to show you the two dies that I received from Spellbinders. They asked me if I wanted to share. I thought the dies were really beautiful, and so I'm going to make a few cards with them today. There is this really large frame. As you can see, that's it compared to an A2 size card. So it is larger than an A2 size card. And the cards that I wound up making for it are 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 square. But I think that you could make a smaller card with them as well, because you would just be able to kind of like cut off all that extra stuff and still have that really pretty frame. So it also has that smaller frame. They both have a circle center, and they give you a die that cuts out a circle with a little bit of a border. So I'm using that today in my card. It also cuts out the words special and day, and there they are on an A2 size card, and that's the other more ornate but smaller frame. And you can just I just wanted to show you what they look like compared to a standard size card. Then there is the oval, floral oval, and it includes that gridded oval as well as this floral piece. And as you can see, you get dies that cut out the 3 flowers, and they layer perfectly on top of all the flowers in the floral piece, and I'm going to take advantage of that. But they would also layer on top of each other to create a dimensional flower. So I wanted to create something simple with the floral oval die, and I've die cut it out of a thick piece of cardstock, but I wanted to give it a little bit of depth. I didn't want it to be just kind of one solid bright color. So I am taking some Distress Oxide ink, and I'm just sort of rubbing it all over while it's still in the paper, because it's going to be much easier to work with. If you were to just try to put ink on the die cut itself, you're going to most likely pick up pieces of the die cut and, wrinkle it and et cetera, et cetera. So I just felt like it would be easier to do then. And then also it wouldn't be perfectly covered because of the dimension of it. So I had a bit of a hard time figuring out which adhesive would be perfect for these intricate dies. I know that a lot of people like the stick-it adhesive, and I have found that it die cuts really well compared to other full stick adhesives. But what I tried was the Elizabeth Crafts tape, stick-it adhesive, and scrapbook.com adhesive, because scrapbook.com sells it in sheets and rolls, so does Elizabeth Crafts. I happen to have a roll of Elizabeth Crafts and a sheet of scrapbook.com, but they're the same adhesive, and then the stick-it sheets. And what I found was that the Elizabeth Crafts and the scrapbook.com were harder to die cut through because they were thicker, but they were also a stronger adhesive. I found with the stick-it adhesive, even though it was easier to die cut and therefore easier to peel off, once I did try to press it all down, it wouldn't always stick in all areas. There wasn't like enough adhesive on it. I didn't try liquid glue this time. I've used it in the past, and it certainly works, but I would recommend multimedia matte from Ranger or some other sort of glue that dries clear but opaque. If you dry, so like glossy accents will dry shiny, and then you will see that kind of coming out from around your dies. So, and just something to keep in mind, and something that I chose to experiment with. Here with the flowers, because they weren't so intricate, I did really prefer to use the stronger adhesive like Elizabeth Crafts or scrapbook.com. And as you can see, the pink flowers fit perfectly over the green, so it's not even visible, and it gives you this look of layered die cuts really easily. You don't have to go through and try to cut off just the flowers and layer them on, although that is certainly something you could try to do if you had a similar die cut. Once I layer those all on, I'm going to be able to finish off the card with a sentiment and the Cat Scrappiness pink jewels. I decided to work with the honeybee stamps to go with these. I just thought that, particularly the Beautiful Life sentiment stamp set, I liked how the small hand lettering look of the sentiments really worked well with the intricacy of these particular dies. And I did add the pink jewels here from Cat Scrappiness. They are flat backed and the back is opaque. So I was able to just put a little bit of liquid glue behind them, or you could use very small glue dots. I think I went with the glue dots this time because I feel like sometimes they are a little bit stronger, like they hold a little bit better in the mail. It would have been probably smart to stamp my sentiment first. I could have even used a stamp positioner. But Cat Scrappiness has a couple of new colors, and they're coming out with more colors as well if they're not already released. I also finished it off with simply rounding the corners. But the other honeybee stamp set that I was mentioning is the Swimming By. And I like a lot of character stamp sets, but they tend to be very like cartoony and cutesy, which is generally my style. But with these really beautiful dies from Spellbinders, I wanted something that was like, was the cute characters that I like, but also had this more like pretty look to it as opposed to a cutesy look. And I thought that the honeybee stamps really did that. I actually made more than one card. I made a mermaid with darker skin and purple hair, and then a mermaid with lighter skin and pink hair. I wanted the mermaid to really match the frame so that it was very cohesive, because it was going to be a pretty simple card. There's just going to be the mermaid image with the sentiment and the frame, and that's kind of it on the card. And so because of that, I wanted them to have some interest to them. I went with the E25 and 23, and I tried E21 with it, but I didn't like how it looked, so I added in the E33 instead, and that's what I went and used going forward. I have tried coloring various skin tones in the past, but I'm really terrible at writing down my ideas. I should probably go back and watch old videos and that kind of thing to find out what color combinations I've used. But I do enjoy experimenting with different skin colors because, of course, we all have different skin colors, and even people of the same race have different undertones to their skin and different variations and, things like that. So I also, as many of you know, donate most of my cards, and I thought that these would be really nice cards to donate because, they are cute enough for a little girl, but also would be well suited for a teenage girl. And the organizations I donate to share their cards with a wide variety of ages. And so often it is easy to make cards that are perfect for really young children, but to make a card that also works well for a teenager and isn't too cutesy can sometimes be a challenge. So they fit the bill, and knowing that I was going to donate the cards and I was going to make a few of them, I wanted to make different skin tones so that the cards could be, possibly matched up to the person that is receiving them, or just, to represent the variety of people there are in the world. So that's always my logic. That's why I try to do that so often, because I want to, make a variety of cards for who I donate to. And all the donation information is always in my video description. I always share it down there so that you can do that as well if you are interested. To color the hair, I went to my favorite purple combination, which is V25, 22, and 20. I just find that they blend pretty well together, and it's not too bright. Some of the other purples that I initially started with, like V06 and V09, are really bright and really dark and heavy, and I had some trouble working with them. But in the end, I don't know that I loved it. I actually think she would have benefited from having maybe a little bit darker of hair or something like that. It's something about the purple tone wasn't quite what I wanted in the end, but I am going to color all the other parts purple. So her hair and her fin. Oh, actually, no, wait, I think I may color the her top a different color. But I wanted it to be really cohesive, like I mentioned before. So I didn't want to add an additional color with the hair or anything like that. But yeah, I do think I'm going to go in with this, the pink color, so that kind of like the cards are like opposite of each other. So the parts that are pink in one are purple in the other, and vice versa. So I'll have the R85, 83, 81 for the top. To color the hair, I just allowed the darker parts to be her roots, essentially, and let it just fade out from there. That's not the most realistic thing to do. The more realistic thing to do would be let the highlights be where her hair is coming closest to you, so it should be dark at the roots and dark at the edges. I just was going for something more simple on this particular day, but you could get a little bit more realism from that technique. And with the mermaid fin, and the body as well, I decided to create some simple dimension. And for simple dimension, I just tend to make the edges darker so that there's a little bit of depth and dimension, like her tail looks rounded because it has the shadows on the edges. And the same thing with her arms or her torso. I wanted to come in with a simple background. Because I was making 2 of these, I think it was only 2, maybe it was 3. I could have probably cut out the mermaid and masked it, and then I could have used the mask in the future. And then if I had masked off the mermaid with a paper mask, like I usually use Ink-A-Dink-A-Doo masking paper, it's a personal favorite, but anyway, not relevant right now. I would be able to just come in with my Distress Oxide inks or Distress inks or really any dye ink. I don't know why I mentioned those specifically, just ones I like to blend. And then just be able to add some solid blue behind her or add a little bit of blending with blue. So that might be your preference, but I have a lot of Copic markers and refills, and so I just created a really simple blue background around her by coloring with the markers. So here is the pink background because this is the one that I did with Stick It. And I wanted to show this one because ultimately, if I were going to continue to use the frames, this is the adhesive I would use. On the purple card, I used the scrapbook.com adhesive, which is super strong, and I really like it for many things, but on an intricate die, it was really hard to peel it off easily. As much as this in itself was actually a bit challenging, even the Stick It was a bit challenging. It's not coming off in one piece, like some of the little detail areas aren't coming off as easily, but also it would be easier if you did use a completely solid piece. I kind of, put little extra pieces together to cover it because I didn't want to waste any Stick It adhesive. Because Stick It adhesive is kind of pricey too, which it's worth it in instances like this. But as I placed it down, I did notice there were like a few little of the spirals and stuff that didn't stick down quite as much as I would have liked them to. Whereas with the scrapbook.com, everything stuck down really, really well. It was just much, much harder to remove the adhesive. What I would suggest is maybe just adding a tiny bit of liquid glue in the areas where the Stick It wasn't holding as well, and maybe through the combination of them, you could make the process easier. Because if you were to do this with just the liquid glue, to try to put liquid glue on every single one of the little spirals would be quite time consuming. But the effect is beautiful. These frames are absolutely gorgeous. It makes the card feel special without having to do a lot to it and to just add your simple image inside. I did go back to the Honey Bee Beautiful Life stamp set to get that Just Smile sentiment again. I really love that sentiment set from Honey Bee because it has some really simple things, and that the saying there, throw kindness around like confetti or something close to that effect. It's like kind of one of my mantras. I have a sign in my craft room that says that. It's like the screen on my phone. It's a one that I really like and try to live by. So finally, I did want to give a bit of dimension. So I took my Spellbinders die and I traced the inside of it. You could have just cut it out with a die, but it will be the exact same size as the mermaid piece. And I want it to be just a tiny bit smaller so that you wouldn't be able to see it through the edges. But I just traced the die. Then I was able to attach it to the mermaid and then to the card. And that way, by using a solid piece of fun foam here and my Scotch ATG, which is a super strong adhesive, I am able to give it really even dimension. So there will be no chance of it getting crushed in the mail or anything like that. No lumpy and bumpy there. I think that adding the cat Scrappiness jewels to the details in those frames would be really pretty, and they could really kind of punch up the card that way. So I will leave you links to all the products that I mentioned in the video description below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more crafting tutorials, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I'll also have a blog post where you can see that little bonus card of the turtle there, because I did make one more card off camera since this video was so long already. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you spending this time with me. Have a great day. Bye.